Basculegion is a war criminal and it needs to be locked up. Ever since Pokémon Champions has come out, this stupid fish has been claiming lives upon lives, and honestly, I don't think Game Freak should have allowed this thing to exist. But since it's legal, we might as well abuse it. So, today, I am going to show you how to use Basculegion in Pokémon Champions. We'll cover the best moves, abilities, items, stat spreads, and teammates so you can start terrorizing the ladder yourself. Let's get started. Basculegion's typing makes it very threatening right off the bat. There is no single type that resists both water and ghost. Defensively, Basculegion only has 4 weaknesses in grass, electric, ghost, and dark, while resisting fire, water, ice, steel, poison, and bug. More importantly, the ghost typing also gives an immunity to normal and fighting type moves, including Fake Out. Fake Out is the strongest disruptive move in the game, since it allows you to stop a Pokémon from moving for one turn. So Basculegion's immunity to it is a pretty big deal. Stat-wise, Basculegion is actually not that impressive. 112 attack is definitely above average, but it's nothing special compared to other popular Pokémon, and 78 speed isn't that impressive either. Its defenses are also pretty low, but at least the high HP stat makes up for that. In any case, these are definitely not the most exciting stats. So, why exactly is this Pokémon so good? Well, a lot of it has to do with Basculegion's ability. Basculegion has access to 3 different abilities: Mold Breaker, Swift Swim, and Adaptability. Mold Breaker allows a Pokémon to ignore the opponent's ability when attacking. On the right Pokémon, this can be incredibly powerful. Excadrill and Mega Gyarados famously use Mold Breaker to hit Rotom Wash with ground-type attacks despite its Levitate ability. However, Basculegion doesn't benefit from Mold Breaker nearly as much as it does from its other options. Swift Swim doubles Basculegion's speed in rain, turning it into one of the fastest Pokémon in the game. This is definitely a great ability, but Basculegion's most popular ability by far is actually Adaptability. Normally, all Pokémon receive a 50% damage boost when using a move that matches one of their own types, a mechanic known as Stab or Same Type Attack Bonus. Adaptability increases this bonus from 50% to 100%. In other words, this basically doubles the power of Basculegion's water and ghost type moves, which turns it into an absolute monster. Adaptability is so strong that it outclasses Swift Swim even on rain teams. Doubled speed is nice and all, but that's something you can already achieve with Tailwind support anyway, so you'd much rather have the damage boosting ability instead. This ability is a major reason why Basculegion is on top of the metagame, but it's far from the only one. In fact, the main reason behind Basculegion's dominance is actually its insanely scary move pool. Basculegion gets access to one of the most broken moves ever created, Lost Respects. This ghost-type move starts at 50 base power, but every time one of Basculegion's teammates faints, it gains another 50 base power. By the time Basculegion is your last Pokémon standing, Lost Respects reaches a ridiculous 200 base power, turning it into one of the strongest attacks in the entire game. Of course, Basculegion can't rely on Lost Respects alone. Even before any of its teammates have fainted, it's still a terrifying attacker thanks to Wave Crash, an incredibly powerful water-type move that can punch huge holes in opposing teams. It does come with some recoil damage, which isn't ideal, but the extra power is usually worth it. The third move Basculegion should always run is the priority move Aqua Jet. Priority is incredibly valuable in Pokémon Champions for many reasons. In this case, Aqua Jet lets Basculegion pick off weakened opponents before they get a chance to move. Aqua Jet is also extremely important because it gives Basculegion a way to deal with one of its worst matchups in Kingambit. Kingambit has access to Sucker Punch, a priority dark-type move that can easily knock Basculegion out. However, Aqua Jet allows Basculegion to turn the tables. Since Basculegion is naturally faster than Kingambit, its Aqua Jet will always go first even if both Pokémon use a priority move. This creates an interesting interaction. Sucker Punch only works if the target is about to attack the user. But because Basculegion has already moved by the time Kingambit uses Sucker Punch, the move fails completely. These 3 moves are mandatory on every Basculegion. The only exception is on Focus Sash Basculegion, which prefers Liquidation over Wave Crash since recoil damage can break your own Focus Sash. The 4th move depends on your item. If you're running Choice Scarf, which boosts Basculegion's speed by 50%, you should always use Flip Turn. It allows Basculegion to deal some chip damage and immediately pivot out, which helps you maintain momentum while bringing in a Pokemon with a better matchup into your opponent's Pokemon. However, Choice Scarf is far from the only viable item. If you want to maximize your damage output, Mystic Water is a great option that boosts the power of Water-type moves by 20%. Another great choice is Golber Berry, which halves the damage of the first Dark-type attack that attacks Basculegion, and this obviously improves its matchup against Kingambit. Citrus Berry is another good choice. While it may not be as flashy as the other options, the extra healing can be really valuable to neutralize recoil damage from Wave Crash. If you're using any of these items, Basculegion's fourth move should always be Protect. Protect is the most important move in doubles. It allows the user to scout what the opponent does, stall out field effects like Tailwind and Trick Room, and avoid being double targeted by both of the opponent's Pokemon. This is especially valuable for Basculegion since your opponent will often go out of their way to remove it before Last Respects becomes too threatening. Alright, I've now gone over Basculegion's abilities, moves, and items, so let's now take a look at which natures you should consider and how you should distribute your stat points. The most straightforward way to train your Basculegion is with maximum attack and speed, so 32 stat points in both. If you're running a Choice Scarf, I recommend a Jolly Nature, since this allows Basculegion to outspeed key threats such as Mega Gengar, Aerodactyl, and Mega Delphox. For non-Choice Scarf sets, Adamant is generally the better option, since the extra damage output is very valuable. That said, you don't necessarily have to dump all of your points into attack and speed. For example, investing 14 points into defense guarantees that Basculegion survives the Sucker Punch from Kingambit as long as it isn't holding the black glasses. Alternatively, a spread of 11 defense and 6 HP achieves the same benchmark while also allowing Basculegion to survive a Solar Beam from Mega Charizard Y. These optimizations may seem minor, but they can easily be the difference between getting knocked out and firing off a game-winning Last Respects. Alright, now for the fun part, teammates. One of the biggest reasons Basculegion is so good right now is that it isn't locked into a single playstyle. Unlike most Pokemon that only function on a few teams at most, Basculegion can fit on just about anything. That said, there are a few teammates that stand out. Kingambit is easily Basculegion's most annoying matchup, so Pokemon that pressure Kingambit make excellent partners. Sneasler and the recently added Mega Staraptor are the most obvious examples since they both threaten an immediate knockout with close combat. Mega Charizard Y can do the very same with its sun-boosted attacks, and Mega Floette is also worthy of a shoutout since it resists Dark while threatening a one-hit knockout on Kingambit with Light of Ruin. In return, Basculegion heavily threatens Sneasler, which is Floette's sworn enemy. If you want to make Kingambit's life even more miserable, redirection support can be very valuable as well. Mousehold and Sinistcha can both fulfill this role and essentially make Kingambit's Sucker Punch completely useless. Another way to block Sucker Punch is through Farigiraf's Armored Tail, which makes all priority moves against your side of the field fail. Defensively speaking, Incineroar is one of the best partners Basculegion can ask for. It resists 3 of Basculegion's weaknesses in Dark, Ghost, and Grass, while also threatening Kingambit with Flare Blitz and providing Intimidate, Fake Out, and Parting Shot support. Kingambit itself can also work very well as a partner, resisting the same 3 types and forming a very potent offensive core. Another Pokemon worth considering is Garchomp, because it gives you a reliable answer to electric types like Rotom Wash, which can otherwise be quite annoying. If you're running Basculegion without Choice Scarf, you should also seriously consider Tailwind support from Whimsicott, Aerodactyl, or Talonflame to patch up Basculegion's average speed. And of course, we can't talk about Basculegion without mentioning Rain. Rain boosts the power of Water-type moves, which turns Basculegion into an absolute monster. Pelipper and Politoed are obviously the weather setters, while Archaludon, Mega Swampert, and Mega Dragonite can naturally slot into Rain teams and form an incredibly threatening offensive core alongside Basculegion. This list could literally go on for ages, but I think I'm going to stop here. Just know that you can probably make this fish work with anything that's half decent. And that's it for Basculegion. If you'd like to see more of these videos, let me know by leaving a like and subscribing. And if you want me to cover a specific Pokemon or you still have questions, my comment section is the place to be. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.